Waters Morning Scramble. Appreciate you tuning in today. And Dr. Leon McClinton is in. This is our Doctor Day. Dr. Jeremy Cook will be right after you.
Okay.
So, who doesn't fit in with all the doctors? It's me. So, very glad you've come in to share experiences. And
Yes.
we're also obviously talking about the issues of the day,
Yes.
which are our race. That's been, and you mentioned it's a revolution. I mentioned to you before we came on, I think everybody's doing introspection right now. I hope anyway,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
I think
Absolutely.
hopefully we're all seeing what we're doing. Okay, can I do better? And
Yes.
I think the answer is always yes.
Yeah.
But what about, and one thing that social media has done, I think, is it exposes people
Yes.
because people think there's anonymity in it and they get overly, I don't understand it. But I think most people can relate to this. But I was telling you, I had a family member that was a different generation older than I am,
Yeah.
but really, led a good life, did
Yeah.
good things.
Yeah.
And then you learn from this, it turns out, has views you never knew about.
Yes.
And this came out, I think, within the last decade, especially with President Obama. You saw some retweets, and some might be in the cartoon thing or memes or whatever they called them at that time. And you would see those things, and you go, "My goodness, I had no idea that so and so felt that way."
Yeah.
And it can almost jar you.
Yeah.
How should we handle that? How should we? It's probably on an individual basis with
Yeah.
different people.
It is. It is. That's a tough one, Steve. I mean, that's a really challenging situation, and I will tell you, I've experienced that. I've had friends, close friends, that have had older family members with that same outlook towards the black community, and I think there have been a couple of instances where they've gotten to know me, gotten to talk to me, and see that, I can have conversation, I can relate to some topics that they're interested in, and try to get past that skin color. It's amazing to me how that skin color can just really produce some thoughts. And I think that the best way to approach that is trying to get the people that have that mindset, in a room at a table, just having conversation, and trying to not put so much emphasis on that skin color.
And that's go back to sports or music too.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it does knock down a barrier whether we accept it or not.
Yeah.
But let's take our own teams here.
Yeah.
We're diehards, all right?
Yes, we are.
And so you and I really believe this. Not only do you admire our favorite players for what they do on the court or the field, but you get an affinity, and I think people genuinely care about them.
Yes. Yes, they do.
And call them by their first name, and hey, they're part of, and therefore it's like that wall has been knocked down.
Yes.
When if it wasn't for sports, it might still be up there.
Yes.
Between A and B,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But because you see them in interviews, and hey, I'd love to have go out and have coffee or beer or whatever it is with that person, and suddenly we don't see color.
Yeah.
How can we get to that point?
Well, when I think about that, I think about, we do, Steve, pull for our players, and when I think about basketball and football, the majority of those players are black, and within the NFL has really been in the news lately, based on institutionalized racism, and I think we all can learn from that. I think that what they're going through can be applicable to other fields. What's going on there is, in the NFL, they're saying we have 70% of our players are black. 70% are black. We have, out of 32, I think 32 teams, we have 3 black head coaches. So that's a little under 10% if I do the math.
And I think that's going down. I think that's been reduced. Right?
Yeah, yeah. So people are asking the question, so what's going on here? And I think what you're seeing is, when I think about some of the stories due to racism and whites getting certain positions, I've been in situations where we just gravitate and communicate with people that look like us, and don't think about color. Well, we spend time with people that look like us. So when you think about NFL, most of the owners are white men, and so we're going to gravitate and communicate with people that we feel like that look like us. That usually, if they look like us, they have some of the commonalities that are important to us. And I think that we need to be more intentional with trying to bring different backgrounds to leadership positions, and being creating leadership development programs and being intentional about that. And I think that all of our, I think about just fields across the country that need to make that a priority.
And we do get used to. I had one of my guests went and spoke to two different groups, and I'll tell you they were at the state capitol, right?
Yeah.
Spoke to one group, and it was a diverse group. It's not as diverse maybe as it should have been, but there was some diversity in it.
Yeah.
And then she spoke to the other group, and she was the only female in the room.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
part of it is, well, that's the way it's always been.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so not only by race but by gender, and that's a major issue too.
It is. There's this great TED talk. I hope the listeners will go and look it up. But it's by this one by the name of Carla Harris, and it's titled "How to Get Ahead at Work." And she's pretty much saying that you need a sponsor at the table, not a mentor, not a champion, not an advocate. You got to have a sponsor, someone that's willing to spend political and personal capital on your career. And so both sides, members of the Black community, have to figure out how to identify those sponsors, and members of the white community need to step up and be a sponsor for some of our Black up and coming leaders.
When you watch the stuff going on around the country and the
Yeah.
protest, and there was a town I told about this yesterday. It's Maryville, Missouri, which is in the northwest part. It's almost in Iowa,
Yeah.
and it's a town of 12,000. Northwest Missouri State is there, and so it may have a little bit of diversity. But I looked it up; it's 93% white. But they had a large crowd turn out to show support, and most of them it looked like were white. But the way I understood the story is there were some local folks that didn't want this thing going on, so therefore some neighboring towns and stuff wanted their voices heard, and so others came, and so this little town of 12,000 swelled with support. Not all the folks looked like they were from that town, but a lot of them did. Do you find that inspiring and reassuring, and a little bit that we do have a revolution and people are listening?
Yes, we do. And that makes me think about last week, our protest. I live downtown, and so very encouraging to see a very diverse group racially come out and support the protest. And so there are many, like I said earlier, there are many members of the white community that understand this and understand the significance, and really sad and heartbroken. I had he's going to be a rising junior at Oklahoma State University, up and coming leader, dear friend, and sent me a text after the video of George Floyd release, and says, "Leon, I'm heartbroken. We've got to make changes." I've got a dear a staff member opened up her house to my godmother that came to visit a few years ago. I didn't have enough space in my own place, and she allowed her to stay at her home, and a Black lady. And so being from the South again, you're kind of, well, gosh, you don't even know this woman, and you're going to let her stay in it. So there are a lot of, I think there are improvements and a lot of love, but as we can see, there's still a lot of tension and a lot of resentment, and I think that historically, Blacks have been looked upon as an inferior race, and so we've got to work in acknowledging the Black community is tired of feeling that way, and that's why you're seeing the riots, the acts of the acts that we're seeing is because they're tired of not being heard. We're tired of not being heard. So.
I told you during the break about this the story that I saw. I guess I saw it last night, but I saw it again this morning, and it's just offensive and appalling. But it's a Mid-Dell teacher that put a post on there that's not insinuating racism. It's not just off the mark that way. It's clear and blatant. And I have no doubt that as of Friday, they're going to have a board meeting, and that person will be gone. And I don't know whether they should even have their, you get into more stuff.
Yeah.
But what's really appalling is here's a person who's gone to college, been educated, and still has that view. That view in particular. If you could go on and look at it, and it just,
I will.
You got to think that I guess we thought that was behind us, and we're reminded that it's not.
Yep.
And you probably were more aware that it's not than
Yep.
most of us.
Yep. Exactly.
You had a few thoughts you wanted to share to make us all think.
Yeah, yeah, and I have a few questions, and I've got some followers on social media, and I'm going to definitely present these to my field, in the housing field, as we continue to try to support our Black community and my white colleagues who are definitely coming to the table and want to know, well, what can we do? I have a few questions. I'm going to tweet these out, but I do want to leave this with our listeners. These 3 questions. Number one. How often do you have in-depth conversations with people of a different race at work and outside of work? Number 2, have you intentionally created a professional development path for someone of a different race? Examples serve as a mentor, encourage participation in an institute, or a leadership development program. And again, I want to add to that now is, when was the last time you've been a sponsor for an up-and-coming Black person?
That's almost that bootstrap thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Number 3, what is more important to you as a leader? Okay, what is more important to you as a leader? Creating optimal success for your organization, or establishing a small circle of people that produces a comfortable, easygoing environment? And it goes back to the beginning of our conversation that, really if you want to look at this broadly, the reason one of the reasons this is so important, this topic is so important, is that we want this country to be the best that it can be. And in order for that to happen, all subpopulations, all races have to be heard and have to be valued. And they all aren't right now. Steve, thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for coming in. And can I tell what I asked if I could share this
Yes,
a bit?
yes,
Because when
yes,
I
yes.
first invited you a week and a half ago or so,
Yes, please.
I didn't hear back. I actually wanted to. Do I know how to direct message? Because I lost your phone number.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, we actually met at a social event.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
consider us friends.
Yep.
But I didn't have his number.
Yeah.
And so I sent a direct message, and I thought I may not know how to do this. Leon, I even went on YouTube to learn how to do this for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because I don't direct message on that.
Okay, thank
One,
you.
because I was afraid. Okay, does everybody see all these things or not? So I know how to
Yeah.
tweet, but I
Yeah.
don't usually do that.
Yeah.
But then the reason was, and you wrote me a very heartfelt note back.
Yes. Yes.
And you had to give us a little thought because
Yeah, I did.
these are tough topics.
It is, and I had to think about it for almost 2 days, and initially was not going to do it because it there's political ramifications potentially, and people get uncomfortable, and may I'm sure when I get back on my social media I may have some people that share with me that they're not pleased with what I said, but it's important enough. It was important enough for me to come on and share my thoughts, because we are at a point in our country where I think it's a pivotal point. It's a pivotal point, and I think that we are going to see some significant change between the white and Black community.
I look forward to the next visit when we can talk about those changes and also talk about how you're going to figure this housing thing.
Yes, it's a lot. I'll be ready. Okay.
Leon,
All right.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. All right.
Hey, we're going to take a time, and I do want to make sure that everybody knows. I think this will probably end up. The first part will be up on my Twitter page. It may be this afternoon or tomorrow or whatever, but especially the first part with Dr. Leon McClinton. And I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Thank you.